Good morning. The old man here, October 18th, 2025. The thing I want to talk about today is gold. And when I say gold, also remember that silver is a monetary metal. Everything you hear about silver being uh, a commodity or it's used commercially for solar panels or whatever else is that narrative has worked as long as there was a fake fiat currency system, and the system's coming to an end, and silver is showing its monetary metal base right now. So again, when I say gold, I'm also referring to metal or silver as well. The monetary metals, gold and silvers, will continue to rise as the fake fiat currencies across the world um, come to an end, and that is truly what we're seeing now. There's so many cracks showing now, whether it be the housing market, and these guys will tell you that there's no housing bubble, there's no shortage, there's blah 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 blah. It's going to go up. It's going to continue to go up. Well, I'm gonna call bullshit on that. And the reason I say that is I'm watching houses in the houses and in property in general, actually, property with a decent house on it, watching that, and I'm seeing many, many houses on there. I've got many of them I'm watching. I want to see the barometer. I want to see where it's going, and watching some of these people that are telling you the truth, see if they got a really good handle on it or not. They're showing markets across the United States where, property and what have you have dropped by 25%. And I agree with them. They're not blowing smoke up your ass. They're telling the truth. I've watched several properties now. I think these realtors are playing games because I've watched one particular property, in fact, not too far from the house, and where I live now, and that property has been saying contingent for like 4 months. It's contingent on what? If somebody had, put a deposit on it and they're doing their due diligence and they're working through it, it should have been sold by now, and it's not. So, yeah, bullshit. But I've been watching properties now that some of them properties have dropped 10, 20, 30, even one property that was on the market for 30 days and they dropped it 60 grand and it's still up for sale. In other words, they're overpriced, and the market can't handle it now. And that's with people still feeling like they've got some value, some riches in their portfolio, and that is also coming to an end. The one thing I want you to think about, and in past markets where everything was so manipulated, they were able to cover up the fact that gold is money and the rest is just a fake fiat currency and a derivative of the fake fiat currency. But now we're in a trap. All fake fiat currencies across the world are in a trap. They've run their course. There's no one area that, in the past, in 81 or 2011, when we had a big bubble and everything went to shit, there was other economies that weren't doing as bad. Money just kind of moved around. And gold, yeah, they did something, but honestly, it was just the speculators pushing it up. Didn't have nothing to do with the central banks. They still weren't stacking gold. Now they're stacking gold, and that's should be the sign to you that times are different. Times have changed. They know they're front running it. They know that the fake fiat currencies across the world have met their um, the criteria. They've gone as far as they can. And the whole purpose of the Fed and other central banks being developed back in 1913 was to fleece you of your wealth. And as long as you're in the matrix and you're playing the game, they will continue to fleece you of your wealth. And we're going to see a huge fleecing coming here shortly. I know a lot of people ain't going to believe that, and that's fine. They might have $1 million in their stock portfolio, and things are going good, and I can't see anything wrong with the markets. They just keep going up, blah 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 blah. Again, they got to keep it looking good. The big players are actually, the biggest player of all is the central banks and the BIS, and they have gone to gold. Now, if they have a choice between gold on their balance sheet or something on their balance sheet like a U.S. bond where they can fleece you of your wealth, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to choose the fleecing of your wealth over gold. Gold is the standby, the go-to when everything hits the fan. So the central banks have already made that rotation. They're slowly, again, they're just like anything else. They can only move so fast. If they move too fast, they've got so much worthless shit on their books that if they move too fast to gold, they drive gold up and they drive everything else down to zero fast. They don't want to do that. They want to keep fleecing you of your wealth as much as they can. So they're slowly rotating from these fake fiat currencies on their books and derivatives of those fake fiat currencies, whether that's stocks or bonds or whatever they got on their books, that's losing value. And while you're still in the matrix and don't see what's going on, they've got the opportunity to fleece you out of it. If you've got $1 million portfolio today and you think you can retire on that in the near future, well, I don't think that's going to work out so well for you, but that's just my opinion. But I look as gold as a barometer, and a few others I've heard have said this, and honestly, it didn't hit me till just recently how much so. When you've got, if you're the big boys and you've got the chance, you want to be all in as long as you're fleecing everybody. You want to be all in and not in gold. You want all your cards on the table. You want to play the full deck. That's it. Don't hold back as long as you're fleecing everybody and they have no clue what the hell's going on. But again, they know that this fake fiat currency system is going to come to an end at some point. You've fleeced as much as you can, and there's just the point of, you've squeezed everybody so bad, you can't get no more blood out of that turnip. So, you start to revert to gold. And the big players are doing the same thing. You take Bezos and what the hell, the guy from Meta, Jamie Dimon from the big bank. I can't think of it at the moment. Doesn't matter. They're all selling their stock slowly, and they're rotating into other things. I know the big boys are rotating into farmland, and that's all well and good. I think that's going to be a mistake, but that's just my theory down the road. Maybe we'll talk about that at another time. But maybe not. Maybe they know what they're doing. Who knows? It's hard to say. But they're definitely rotating out of stocks. That's it, and they're going to gold and silver to some respect. Uh, so what are we to do? So many people can't afford gold right now. Even a gram, if you buy a gram of gold, I think if you look at even the spot price on a gram of gold is pushing like 130 and or ish, any given day, it's up a little, down a little, whatever. Which is a very little amount of gold, but yet it's got a $20 premium on it, and that's a hell of a lot when you think there's 31.1 ounces or grams of gold in an ounce, and you're paying 31 times 20. That's a hell of a lot of premium. So you're not getting much gold, and you're paying a hell of a lot of premium. So You know, I think the average Joe, if he can afford that, even that is a lot. However, silver, on the other hand, is still reasonable with the 80-to-1 gold to silver ratio. I would say, you know, silver is still one hell of a bargain, and it's affordable. If you go back to the mean over thousands of years, not since 2013 or 1913 and the fake fiat currencies, but prior to that, and for, you know, maybe a couple thousand years prior to that, an ounce of silver, not gold, but an ounce of silver would buy you a month's worth of food for one person. And so if you say today, well, you know, I see the problems and I don't really know how to get out of it, you know, other than trying to pay off debt. And of course, yeah, try to get rid of your debt, especially if you got high interest rate credit cards. Yeah, I would say try to get rid of them because they're going to kill you here in the future. All debt's is enslavement, so it's not going to end well. But if you think of it this way, if there's 5 people in your family, and I'm talking to the men here, if there's 5 people in your family, you're responsible. You yourself and 3 kids. Let's say that's an average family. I think it's up to you to put 5 ounces of silver away every week. You know, you may not think that, well, that's not very much, and what's it going to do? But if you think about it, in the future, if we revert to mean and an ounce of silver buys you a month worth of food, um, you know, you're buying yourself some leadway here. The problem with that is going to be in the meantime, things are going to get pretty tight, and you're going to be tempted to sell that silver um, in order to pay your bills. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to hold on to that silver for dear life because at some point, that's what it's going to take to feed yourself. Um, Housing and lodging, that's yet to be seen how that's going to pan out. Um, but obviously, there's going to have to be some sort of a reset. You know, the globalists have planned on buying everything up and then renting it back to you. I think you're going to see that Donald Trump is running the globalists. He's ran and or running the globalists out of the United States right now. That's coming to an end for them. But I think you're going to see Donald Trump, and this is speculation on my part, but that's neither here nor there. Take it for what it's worth. He's going to run the globalists and the cartels out of North and South America. North America, you got well, we still got globalists in our country for Christ's sakes, but he's going to expose all the illegal shit they've done, and you're going to see some of the big boys, the players, and that's what's got to happen for any kind of normalcy in this country, even though things are going to be awful tight. If you can see that the big players that have really screwed us over go to prison and or, you know, hang at the gallows, and that might come too, that's going to restore faith in the government, and that's what we're going to need. We're going to need to rebuild this country. You're going to need faith in law and order and not a two-tier system where the big players get away with it. The Jamie Dimons of the world, the Clintons of the world, the Bidens of the world, the you might even say the Powells of the world, they're going to come to an end. They have to, in order for things to come back to normalcy in the United States. And at the end of the day, if you get normalcy in the United States and Canada is still a globalist clusterfuck, and South America is run by the cartels, you're going to see a lot of people come to this side, and the side of law and order, and there'll be a huge change. Uh, and in the meantime, you know, he'll squeeze the. It's not too hard to squeeze the globalist out of Canada, the western part of Canada, which is viable. Or he's had enough of their shit, and so we'll see how that plays out. Whether they become part of the United States or they just become, let's say, Canada divides in two and they become trading partners. The West becomes trading partners with the United States. I think, you know, that's very doable. It's a bit of a stretch to say they'll become part of the United States, but who knows? South America, um, completely run by the cartels. He knows how to squeeze the cartels. Number one way to squeeze the cartels is to close the borders, close our southern borders, cut off drugs coming into this country, make drug running extremely unprofitable. Not only from the part of, and they won't give up easy, don't get me wrong, that's what they know, that's what they do, and they're making billions of dollars. And the rest of the country, South America, is so poor that they'll try to penetrate the United States one way or another. But again, you got to have almost to the point you have the death penalty for anybody bringing drugs over the border, and that will make it extremely unprofitable for the cartels. But there's many ways. We don't have to go down there. We don't have to invade. But there's many ways. It's just squeezing their balls and putting an end to it. But we're gonna need a lot of things from South America, including oil. Drill baby drill here in the United States. There's many people that are in the know that'll tell you in the States we've hit peak oil, and because of the oil that we get is shale oil, it's very difficult to get out of the ground, and we've pretty much exhausted what's there. Now, not to say there's nothing left, but we've hit peak oil, and we're going to have to bring it in from other places. So we're going to have real good, friendly trading partners with all of South America. There's a lot of gold and silver in South America, and oil in South America. There's lots of natural gas in Canada, and oil in Canada, gold and silver in Canada, especially the western parts of Canada. So that's kind of where we're going to go. But back to gold, I kind of got off my drift there for a minute, but back to gold. Gold is the barometer. If you want to know, what's going on, what's wrong, I just don't see it. And if you don't have 6 hours a day like I do, I mean, I really don't have it. I make it 6 hours a day on average. I will watch YouTube videos of people that are in the know. You got to keep in mind that a lot of these people are still selling their book, but they're still going to give you part of the truth. A lot of these stock portfolio guys are managing other people's money. They can't say, well, shit, dude, you got to get out of all this other shit because it's going to near zero. And we're going to have a reset on the stock market and the dollar and everything else. The housing bubble, the stock market bubble, it's coming to an end. And I know a lot of people aren't going to believe that's just what they know for the last 100 years. But I'm afraid it's here. I think it's coming. The other thing I, suggest, I've been working on prepping for many years. I've got a pretty good sized prep. And for so many years, I not only had to convince myself, I had to convince others. It's like, why are you buying so much? What the hell? That's kind of crazy, ain't it? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But even to myself, I said, well, worst case scenario, I'm wrong. And back in the day, I questioned it, quite a bit. Am I wrong? Is prepping this much crazy or what? And I kind of felt crazy at times. Uh, but I always convinced myself, if nothing else, if I'm totally wrong, I can retire and I got 5 years worth of food. All I got to do is buy the staples and or grow, the things I need. And that's for another video, actually, getting away from all the bullshit. But at any rate, I want to have a 5 year supply of food. I've pretty much got that for two people. And so, therefore, 2.5 years ago, after having that 5 years supply of food and basically running out of room, I had to look at something else. And I started looking at gold and silver. I dabbed my toes in it. Then I did more and more and more and more research. And the more I researched, the more I found. The problem is you got to go back in history a good many years, not just the last 100 years, and see cycles of gold and silver belt. The reason those cycles are there is because they're manipulating the fake fiat currency. And they had to convince you, the general public, that gold and silver was dead. It's not a savings vehicle. We're going to manipulate, they didn't tell you that, but we're going to manipulate it to the point where you just hate the product. And so therefore you give up and you find other ways to save. And anything you buy other than gold and silver has diminishing value the second you buy it. So that's not a good savings vehicle. If you go buy a car, it's already lost 20% when you drive off the parking lot. But even if you park it and don't use it, it's still losing value every year that goes by. And many other things are the same way. As soon as you drive out of the parking lot, you've lost your 20% right off the bat, and it has diminishing value throughout the years. So there is no other real savings vehicle. So they pushed you into the stock market. They pushed you into buying housing, or extra housing, or even a house for yourself. They pushed you into that because they know they can fleece you out of taxes. They can make you think it's the American dream to own a house. Is it? If you got to buy it through debt, and they've made it sure that you can't afford a house other than debt. You can't go, you go back far enough, and people, let's say grandpa or mom and dad had a 80-acre farm, and they had 5 kids, and those 5 kids would each get an acre and build a house on it. And they would build a small house, basically the size of a chicken coop, because the family didn't need much. It's just you and the wife. You don't need much, but as the family grew, you added to the house, and you bought it cash. You didn't, you went to the lumber yard, you went and you bought the lumber you needed. You built your own foundation. You added onto the house as you added kids to the house, and then you could afford to have a decent sized family. Today, they don't allow you to do that. I mean, many municipalities have a minimum of, let's say, 1,000 square feet. Well, if you're starting out young, and you're buying a piece of property and you're buying 1,000 square feet, or try to even build 1,000 square feet house, it's way and above what you could ever save for. So you got to take out debt, and they've made it that way. They've all the laws and regulations and the bureaucracy all makes it so you can't live outside the matrix. They keep you in the matrix, and they let you think you're doing something, and then eventually we get to the point where we are now. Every crisis, they have to spend more and more money, or print, excuse me, they got to print more and more money to convince you to stay in the matrix. In '81 they spent so much, and we were what, $10 trillion in debt at that time. We went from practically nothing, you could say, to $10 trillion. And then in the 2000 bubble, they printed more money. And in the 2008 bubble, they printed more money. And in 2020, they claimed that was all about a pandemic. That's bullshit. It was a cover up for the markets crashing again. And here we are. They printed over time, they printed $20 trillion. We got inflation, blah, blah, blah. And now here we are again. We're on the cusp of everything crashing again, or coming unwound. If you want to call it a crash or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. It's hard to say. I go from day to day trying to figure out whether, it's going to be a melt up. In other words, they're going to hyperinflate the money, and of course, everything's going up. Maybe we're there right now, because everything's going up. Gold is going up, silver's going up, stock market's going up. Housing market was going up. Now that's rolled over. So that's kind of telling me, and even the car market's rolled over. So that's kind of telling me it's not going to be a melt up like I thought it might. A few people kind of half-ass hands be convinced that it could be a melt up, and I could see that. But now I think gold, the barometer, is telling you where we're at and where we're going. Gold is going parabolic across all but 5 currencies in the world, is going up. They've hit all-time new highs in gold in all currencies. The United States has finally hit an all-time nominal high. Now, mind you, we haven't hit our inflation-adjusted high, but you can bet your sweet ass we're gonna. And the thing that, if you think you want to know where I think we're at, and I'm coming to this conclusion here, everybody's telling you, maybe a year down the road, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road. I don't think it's that far. I don't think it's that far. And by God, it's not going to hurt to prep as though it's going to be mid-year next year. Start prepping your ass off. That's all I got to say. And if you're a paper pusher, you know, don't get me wrong, you better learn some fucking skills. I'm telling you, there ain't going to be a job for a paper pusher. You're going to have to learn some skills. And if you think universal basic income is going to bail your ass out, well, that might bail your ass out for a while if you're living in just about any other country, but in the United States, you're going to have to fucking work. That's all there is to it. It's that, again, that's what comes with truth and justice is work. That's how we built this country. That's how we'll rebuild this country is work. And like I said, if you think you're a paper pusher and you're going to make a living in this new economy, you're not. There's going to be so few jobs for paper pushers, it'll be unbelievable. And I think that's where AI is going to come in. AI is going to take and relieve a lot of the mundane paper pushing, if you will. But when it comes to real work and rebuilding this country, a robot's not going to be able to do that. You know, from building foundations to building real buildings to cutting the wood to mining the copper to getting the oil out of the ground and making oil deals across the, it's not going to be very efficient and it's not going to work very well to bring oil from across the world. We're going to have to figure out ways, and I think it's common. That's what the trade deals are all about, or part of what the trade deals about. There's a lot of other things going on under the surface there. But part of not fleecing the public, or at least the U.S. public anymore, is that you're going to get real work and a real wage, whatever that looks like, and it's going to have to be gold and silver. That's the only real wage there is, and wages wise, I think that's going to be silver, honestly. And people, when they're done with this fake fiat currency, people ain't gonna want nothing to do with paper anymore. You're not gonna have any trust in paper at all. And I'm talking about paper dollars. I'm talking about even these fake clad coins that we've had since 65 and beyond were fake clad coins. You got a little bit of copper and a little bit of zinc. Them coins aren't worth shit. They're going to have to get melted down and used to rebuild our industry. It still has some use, but we'll have to melt that shit down. And but it's not. You're going to have to get paid in real wages, or people just aren't going to work. That's all there is to it. It's going to be much like China. They're trying to tell you how great China is. You watch all these gold guys, blah 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 blah. But here's the problem with communism: is the big players have got the gold, and the peasants have nothing. And the peasants are saying, "Fuck you! I ain't working for nothing anymore. I'll just go back to the fucking mountains, and you'll have to come and get me." And the fact of the matter is, who's going to get them? Nobody. Nobody wants to fight on their ground. If you're a soldier for the Chinese government, and you're going to think you're going to go in the mountains and get people and bring them back to work, they ain't going to do it. They ain't going to fucking do it. You're not going to go and fight on their level. If nothing else, the guerrilla warfare will be ugly, and blah blah blah. I'm getting off the track, but at any rate, you think communism is so great? Marxism is so great. It's destined to fail. It failed many, 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 many times. And it normally winds up with the death of many, many people when they refuse to work for nothing. So communism will die again and again and again. I feel sorry for the people. They say there's 1.2 billion people, but there's other stats that say they got 750 million people. They ain't as big as they say they are. Everything in China is a fucking lie to keep Xi happy. They're reporting shit that's not even true, again, to keep him happy. So I'm getting off track again. I think you see that the United States, truth and justice must come back, and it will under Donald Trump. And if you want to play in this market, if you're a country outside of the United States and you want to play in this market, you're going to have to pay the tariffs to play in this market. That's all there is to it. In fact, you're going to have to build if you're Mercedes Benz and you want to make cars in the future, you're not only going to have to come here, you're going to want to come here. If you're Volkswagen, and unless you want to be out of business entirely, you're going to come to the United States, because honestly, Germany and all of the EU, I don't need to name them all, let's just make it easy. All of the EU is going to crash. They're on the brink of crashing right now, and they're going to take Britain right with them. The only thing Britain has to offer is financial services, and we know where that got us all, right? They are the biggest part of the problem, and they are getting squeezed by Donald Trump. And if you don't think that's the case, well, you'll wake up here in a little bit. Some people have asked me, what do you think about cryptocurrency? Honestly, there was a time to make a hell of a lot of money in the cryptocurrencies. There was a time to make a hell of a lot of money in the stock market. There was a time to make a hell of a lot of money in the housing market. But in my opinion, now is not the time. The big players are getting out. They're selling into the rallies. At one time, and the whole purpose of the cryptocurrencies, and especially Bitcoin, was a bunch of nerds that could trade amongst themselves, which is beautiful. I commend them for it. Trade amongst themselves and stay out of the fake fiat currency system. It was decentralized across the world, and they built great things with it, and they got great ideas. In fact, if they take those ideas, they can expand them into the United States, and it can be used, and it probably will be used. But for the general investor, it is no longer decentralized; it's centralized, and there's a few players that are making the market, and honestly, they're going to fleece you. They're going to fleece you again. And the only thing at the end of the day is gold and silver in your hand, in your possession, not in a vault somewhere. If you know what I mean, it's going to come back. There's no other way other than a new fake fiat currency system that is going to continue to fleece you. And if you decide to play in that matrix, when you've seen this last matrix blow up, you're crazy. If you do the same thing today that you did yesterday and expect a different result, that is the definition of insanity. That is truly the definition of insanity. So if I'm wrong about Donald Trump, and they bring up another fake fiat currency system, no matter what it looks like, it's not gold, it's not backed up by gold, it's just another fleecing. You will be exposed to the matrix. You will see 100% of the people across the world will see the matrix. And in my opinion, that's coming pretty soon. Now, it'll take a good number of people to wake up. It's going to take them a while. They're going to have to swim in a pile of shit for quite a long time. Some people are dense, and it's going to take them a while to realize, one, that they've been fleeced, and two, that they've been working within the matrix, and the matrix was meant to fleece them. It'll take them a while to wake up. But the sooner you wake up and you see that the only way out is gold and silver, I think it's coming pretty soon. The cracks are showing. And when I say the cracks are showing, what I mean is this Tricolor and this other company, they were selling auto parts, and they had collateral pledged to several different banks, the same collateral. Several different banks used the same collateral to loan them money. And nobody did their due diligence, I should say, to make sure that they're only one on the collateral. So if you're fifth in line on the collateral, what the fuck the chance of you thinking you're going to get anything? Not very much. And then banks are going to, you watch a lot of these regional banks are going to start to fold. Well, what happened the last time 3 regional banks folded? Silver went up exponentially. And beyond that, because of the lack of physical bullion, I'm not saying there's a silver shortage, although there really is a silver shortage. If we kept using it for industrial purposes, of which I think is a lot of that is a fiasco as well. But there's a shortage of physical, let's say 1 ounce coins that the average person can afford, because so much of it went back to the melting pot. All this shit that's been stacked for the last 50 years by different stackers that seen this coming, and now they're selling into the rallies, and or they're just trying to pay bills with it. Excuse me, sell it and pay bills with it. Those guys are all, that's all going to 1,000 ounce bars in big coffers, and when the shit hits the fan, all of them coinage that was there, the 10 ounce, the 5 ounce, the 1 ounce bars, the 1 ounce 1 ounce silver rounds, they're all, well, not all gone, but there's a lot of them been burned up. And if you listen to somebody like Andy Scheckman and others, he'll tell you the big players are the retail investor. Yeah, he's starting to show some interest and he's starting to put in some orders now, but the big players are putting in big orders, monster boxes of all different kinds of gold, or I mean silver and gold too, as far as that goes. But they're really starting to, the big players are really, for the last 6 months, are really starting to come in and buy up. And so as them guys take 500 at a time, they're taking 500 ounces off the market in a crack, and so much of this silver is being melted down and sent to the COMEX. The individual is going to pay astronomical. If you get to the point where you just feel you have to have silver no matter what, which is a poor trade at any rate, you will pay anything for it. So let's say after the first of the year, when corporate earnings and that are shown at the end of the year, and we can see they're all down and everybody starts to get out of stocks, and the stock market takes a pretty decent shit, no matter what that looks like, they're going to rotate to gold and silver. The normies are going to try to go to gold and silver, mostly silver, and there's not going to be a hell of a lot of physical stock out there. You're going to pay astronomical premiums. You could say that silver in the first quarter of next year is $100 an ounce, and the premiums are $25 an ounce, $30 an ounce, $50 an ounce, and you're still going to wait 8 weeks or more. You might wait 120 days for that coin to be produced, but you're going to want to be in line because you have nothing. For a guy that's sitting on a decent stack, he's going to be like, boy, I'd like to buy more, but there's no way I can pay a 50% premium and $100 an ounce. That's just not going to cut it. I'm going to sit on the silver I got for a minute, and then as these people get more and more desperate, I'm going to sell into that desperation and buy the land I've been looking at. And that land, not only is it silver gone up substantially, but the land is also coming down substantially, which means in ounces, you're going to pay less, a hell of a lot less, 6 months from now, even 6 months from now, which is just an eye blink, really. 6 months from now, in ounces anyways, I don't talk about dollars, fuck the dollar. In ounces, you're going to pay a hell of a lot less for a chunk of land. If you start looking now and getting an idea, and that's what I've been doing, I look at an 80 or 100 acre, mostly 80s, we don't sell 100 acres very often, but 40 acres, 80 acres with a halfway decent house on it, X amount of square footage. I'm keeping an eye on them. Just to say, if nothing else, I want land, if not something with a house on it. I really don't need that at this time. But I'm watching land, and I figured out, not in dollars, I figured out in ounces. And as I watched this, 3 months later, and the price has come down $60,000, let's say, and my value of my silver has gone up by 40%, I can buy that land, and it's still on the market, of which means it's still overpriced. I can buy that land with a hell of a lot less ounces today than I was 4 months ago. And what's it going to be like in 6 months? That land's going to have to come down some more. If people want to move that prior to the bank taking it from them, because eventually, if they're laid off, they're going to lose it. They're going to have to come down to the point where they're just breaking even and getting out from under it. You know, they take what they could get to pay the bank off. So, at any rate, I think I've said what I got to say for today. Please, in the comments, first of all, before you check out, hit that like button. I'd appreciate it. And leave a comment. Tell me what you're thinking. You know, tell me if you think the old man's crazy. That's fine. I have no problem with that. No skin off my back. I got alligator skin. I have no, anymore, I have no emotion to anything. Basically, when I say that, what I mean is I'm laser focused. I know where I'm at. I know where I'm going, and I'm trying to help other people get there before it's too late. Please leave me a comment, like, share if you will, if you think what I'm saying makes sense, and you know somebody else that needs to hear it. You know, send it to a buddy in a text. Help wake somebody else up. I have no skin in the game. Whether you buy silver or gold or not, it doesn't matter to me. Other than I want you to become part of a community that can fend for themselves. And if you're in a fake fiat system to the end, you will have no way of helping yourself. And if you can't help yourself, I can't help you either. So do what you got to do, guys. I appreciate you stopping by. And if the only comment you got is I made it 42 minutes, that's cool. That helps push the algorithm out. Thanks a lot. Bye.